everyone. Thank you for joining us for our last Family Orientation Live session. We are joined here by several orientation leaders. So we are here with new student and family programs to answer your questions about what life is like on campus. So these are the real experts at Towson University. We're excited to have them as our guests today. I'll introduce them in just a second, but I do want to mention that we know that you have received a ton of information over the last 48 hours about housing, about COVID testing, and these students aren't those decision makers. So they're not going to be able to answer your questions about policy, procedure, about the motivation behind those decisions. We will, at the end of this call, recap some of the information that we know that you might be able to find helpful. We'll put some contact information in the chat to cover some of those questions that you might have. But this is really your opportunity to ask these students about how they navigate their life at Towson. Definitely ask them about their plans for the semester, how they might be dealing with the changes themselves. But like I said, they might not be able to give you the institutional details about some of those decisions. So with that said, I'll open the Q&A. If you navigate to the bottom of your screen, you should see a button that has choose speech bubbles. You would be able to enter any questions that you have for the students there. So I'll let you all do that while we go ahead and do some introductions. My name is Catherine Canals. If you've joined us before, we have been on calls together. I'm the Assistant Director of New Student and Family Programs, and I work specifically with families. So I'll turn it over to Kristen.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Kristen Handley. I am a senior Family and Human Services major with a Deaf Studies minor, and I work with the Office of New Student and Family Programs as a Student Director of Family Engagement.
Hi guys, my name's Meg. I'm one of the orientation leaders. I am also a senior at Towson. I study family and human services and political science. I'm really excited to be here with you guys today and answer any questions you have.
Hi everyone, my name is Laverne Achompong. I am a rising junior at Towson University, communication studies major with a dual minor in family human services and marketing. And yeah, I'm excited to be here as well, and I hope you all have some great questions and things like that.
All right, so to start, the annual question of how should my student handle their textbooks? Should they buy from the bookstore? Do you buy from somewhere else? Should they have them ready to go for the first day of school? How do you handle your books?
So for me personally, I like to buy my textbooks from the U-Store just because it's convenient. You can go online to their site and then pick them up. They'll like notify you when they're ready. And the U-Store is like right in the Union, which is in the center of campus. So you can just go and pick them up from the U-Store. But I also will like do some research on the book and see if there's like cheaper options that I can like purchase or rent that way. But that's just me.
Yeah, kind of going off of that, I agree as well. I think sometimes it depends on the class. I typically don't buy my book until I've met with the professor at least once in class. Some professors will directly communicate via email, like you need this book the first week of class. And in that case, I will always have it ready. But if they don't, then I typically try to just wait because sometimes they'll be posted on the syllabus, but you won't really need it. Or sometimes they'll be posted on the syllabus, but they may want you to get a different edition. And sometimes that can have kind of a big difference, even though it doesn't seem like it should. So yeah, I typically try to wait, but I will either get them from the U-Store or Book Holders, which is in Towson. It's right like on the way to Uptown. It's a close walk from campus. They have a lot of books available there as well.
Thank you. There was a question submitted about ways that you would recommend that commuter students get involved and feel like a part of the campus.
I can start with some ideas. I know that as a freshman, I joined a bunch of clubs, and although it might look a little bit different this year, clubs are still hosting Zoom meetings or WebEx meetings, and that's still a great way to meet other students who are interested in the same things as yourself. And I would also suggest getting an on-campus job if your student can find any, just because they have to go to work, so they're bound to meet other students and other faculty. So I think those two options are great. Meg Laverne?
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of following with that, I would recommend following like Towson clubs and stuff on social media. For example, in freshman orientation, we talk about Towson CAB, which is the campus activity boards, and they plan a lot of really fun events for students who live on or off campus. You can meet people there. I also know personally, my freshman year, met friends through like a Zumba class that was offered at Burdick. So again, we don't really know what that's going to look like this semester, but I think getting involved in any kind of activity club, whatever it is, whether it's virtual or in person, is always a great way to meet people, especially if their classes are all online. It may be a little bit harder initially.
Absolutely. A follow-up to the previous question about books. How do you all feel about renting books? Have you ever rented your textbooks instead of buying?
Yeah, I currently have a textbook that is rented still on me since, for spring we had to leave campus and I wasn't able to return them. But it's convenient. I rent my books if I have the option. The U-Store won't always have like renting options available, but I try to whenever I can, just because they're cheaper and then they're also in good condition. Some of them are really in really good condition too. So I'd always recommend you rent if possible, and also if it's like for a core class or something, because maybe a textbook for your major you may want to keep throughout while you proceed to get your degree or something like that, because it might help you a little bit later on down the road. But
Laverne, you mentioned core classes. If someone wasn't able to join us for the academic family orientation, could you talk a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, of course. So core classes at Towson are basically like our generic education classes that it's really helpful for all students, but definitely helpful for undecided students to try to like gear their minds like in towards a direction where they potentially may want to study. So there's 14 different cores, ranging from cores within science, math, English, writing, the arts, and things like that. So Towson just requires that you complete a core class in all of those sections, and there's a few more which you can also find on, which a student can actually find on their PeopleSoft, and it tells them like a little bit about what the cores are, or you can search them up on towson.edu. And yeah, and then when it's time to enroll in classes, you can also search for classes that fill that core specifically. But then within each major, there's also like required classes that can also fill the courses. So you can just, it requires a little bit of research to, just look down at your degree plan and see which classes fit and which classes don't.
Awesome, thank you. And then another book follow-up question is, if you've used a digital version of a book, what's the best way to view that book? On a computer, an iPad, a laptop?
Yeah, so I've used a digital book before. One of my professors actually only wanted us to get the digital version, but they were very clear about that, so you would know if that applies to you. And I take notes on my laptop, so I would just have the textbook pulled up on half the screen, and then the other half of the screen would be my notes. So I think digital is not for everyone, because sometimes people really just love holding the book and being able to read it like that, but I found it helpful. So if I wanted to go study at a coffee shop or somewhere else, I wouldn't have to lug around a bunch of textbooks. They were all just on my laptop. So yeah, I definitely recommend that if it's something that interests you.
Awesome, thank you. There was a follow-up question also to how do you know about on-campus jobs? So Kristen mentioned getting an on-campus job. How do you know which jobs are available? How do you apply for jobs that are on campus?
So Towson University utilizes a job application, resume uploading kind of portal thing like that. It's called Handshake, and each student at Towson University will be given, their login to Handshake. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's just your normal TU ID login that you use to access, your email and stuff like that. And it'll range from, it also has some great off-campus jobs and internships as well, but it has you could search Towson University jobs, and it'll show you all the jobs on campus that are currently hiring, as well as if you are living on campus, there'll be flyers posted on announcement walls in the dorms and also in the academic halls as well.
Awesome, thank you. A book follow-up question, can you rent digital books?
Yes, you can. Yeah, so certain platforms will allow you to do that. I believe Pearson allows you to rent a digital book, and you can pick a specific end date. So if you know you're taking a final this day, or say you don't know the day you're taking your final, you want to put at the end of finals, you can rent it up until that day.
Awesome, thank you. We have some questions about getting involved on campus. So could anyone speak about fraternities and sororities on campus?
Yeah, so I can speak to that a little bit. I'm not personally involved in a fraternity or sorority, but I have a lot of friends who are. So I know that for incoming freshmen, their general rush is in the spring. So fall, there is no formal recruitment. For upperclassmen who are interested, they do informal recruitment for different sororities and fraternities, but they do a general rush for freshmen in the spring.
Awesome.
I also know that there are a bunch of different sororities and fraternities. So there are traditional pan-Hellenic sororities and fraternities, but there are also community ones, academic ones. So there's plenty of options at Towson.
Yes. To follow up on that involvement piece, where can you find clubs online to be involved with?
So there's also a little portal that Towson uses. It's called Involved at TU, and I believe the website link is involved.towson.edu or something like that. But if you were also to search up Involved at TU, I'm on Google, the website would come up definitely. And just like Handshake, you would need to use your login to be able to access all of the clubs and organizations that we have on campus, and then you'd be able to see there's a long list of all of the orgs that are available and descriptions of what they do and their meeting times and things like that.
Great, thank you. A question about living, I think probably in the residence hall. Would you recommend having your own printer in a residence hall, or can you talk about printing on campus?
Yeah, so I lived on campus for 2 years, freshman and sophomore year. I initially came with a printer, but I did not end up using it because it took up so much space. So the next time my parents came to visit, I was like, please take this home. I do not want this here. Because there are printing stations all over campus. So for example, my second year, I lived in an apartment on campus, and they actually had a printing station in my building, which was super nice, but they have them all spread out. Almost every academic building, the Student Union, West Village Commons, the library, and it costs 10 cents per page. And you can add money onto your account through the one card. So you just put your one card in, and it will take money off of there to print. I found that it was so much easier and more cost effective in the long run than having to worry about getting ink. Or when I was a freshman, I didn't have a car, so I couldn't go to Target to buy ink or whatever. So it was just a lot easier to add money to my one card and print stuff when I needed it.
I also, Sorry, Lauren. I also think that it certainly depends on your major, because if you're an English major and you're printing 10-page papers out every 2 days, then you're more likely to need it than an art and design major, or any major that doesn't necessarily require you to type something or look something up to bring to class.
Absolutely. And I did want to jump in. That question also asked about bringing a vacuum cleaner. Having been on the Housing and Residence Life panel the other day, I do know that they're limiting the amount of supplies that they have in order to borrow. So they typically would not recommend that you bring your own vacuum cleaner. This year, as they're limiting lending, they do recommend that you bring more cleaning supplies. If for you that means a vacuum, they recommend that this year. If a student needs additional help in a class, what would you suggest that they do?
I know that for me, whenever I'm having issues in a class, that I utilize my professor's office hours. That's like my top priority. I go to that and see if that can help, because I know that sometimes a lot of students like learn better one-on-one rather than like a class setting, especially since like some of our classes are like 60-seat lectures and things like that. So I would definitely reach out to the professor if you can. Their office hours will always be listed on their syllabus, and see if that time is available for you to go and reach out to them, or set up an appointment with them to go and meet with them one-on-one, and they'll try to work with you, hopefully as best as they can, to help you catch up and get back on the right track.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that, I definitely agree. I think reaching out to the professor directly is super important. I also found it was helpful on my first day in a class to kind of sit next to someone and like become kind of like class friends, like exchange phone numbers. So if you ever like need help with an assignment, a project, whatever, you know someone in the class to kind of reach out to, because professors can be really great, but sometimes they're like maybe not the best at answering an email at like midnight the night before the assignment's due, but your classmate probably will be. So I think it's really important to have more than just one resource available to you. Once you get into your major, you kind of start to know more and more people, but I think freshman year, it's super important to kind of reach out in those beginner classes just to make different friends in different areas, and it can be beneficial for both people.
Towson also has a ton of options for students who might be struggling in the class, including like the tutoring and learning center. And there's also another option called supplemental instruction, which is for certain classes, notoriously difficult classes. So there are plenty of options that students have available to them if they need to get that extra individualized attention or help.
And have your students read the syllabus. That is always step one. Professors often give guidance about what will be helpful for your student to be successful in their class. I see a question submitted here about computer recommendations. So does anyone have recommendations for computers? Is there a TU recommended computer, personal preference? How did you navigate picking your technology?
I don't think that there's a TU preferred computer, but I think really any computer works. I have a Mac computer, and that works perfectly fine for me, but I've seen all kinds of computers, and there's also an abundance of technology available for students' use at the library. So if I would prefer yeah, my computer is fine.
Yeah, I agree. I think you can't really go wrong. I know people who will take notes on their iPad because they like writing, but they want their notes electronic, iPad or tablet or whatever. I personally do it. I have a Mac as well. I love it because it connects to my phone and I can like get stuff done on there, and connects photos and everything. So that's kind of just personal preference, though. I don't really think you can pick a bad one. And as Kristen said, in the library, there are computers available. So if there's a software that you don't have access to on your personal computer, you can always use a library computer to do it. But those incidences are usually pretty far between.
Awesome. I will recommend that you make sure that your technology meets any of your program's requirements. So if you're an engineering major, you might have certain requirements for software. There is that information delineated and recommendations on the OTS website. While I ask the next question, I'll go and see if I can dig that up for you. So there's several questions in the Q&A about parking. Can someone give some general information about what they suggest with parking, an overview of the student experience there, and then if we miss anything, we'll circle back.
Yeah, so parking passes for this year, they're doing them a little bit differently in terms of like payment. So it's always been like you pay that flat fee of, it's usually around $300, and that's that'll give you a pass that's good for the entire year. If you were a commuter student, if you were a commuter student as a freshman, you would purchase the overflow pass, and those are good for the overflow spots. There are some in West Village Garage, and then there are also some up by the CQ Arena. But once you surpass 30 credits, then you'd be able to purchase a core permit, which is good for any of the garages on, like, I believe the third floors and above. So this year they're releasing them by semester. So right now the current rate for parking for a core pass is $93, and those they've already gone on sale. So the parking website is able to, if you were to log into that, you'd be able to be directed to the eParking website and be able to purchase that pass there. Yeah, so they're doing them by semester for this upcoming year, or for this upcoming year. Were there any like specific questions about parking?
Someone asked about cost, but my understanding is that that varies by pass type. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I would just also advise that you be very aware of where you're parking. As you know, the first floor is for visitors, and you want to make sure that you have a valid visitor's pass at all times. Second floor is for faculty and staff, and then the third floor begins like core and up. But then also there are some like residential spots where like they're reserved for the residents in that area. Like for example, West Village Garage like has like certain sides of the garage that they only limit to the West Village residents that live on campus and have purchased a parking space. So there are plenty of signs all around the garage. Just want to make sure that you are reading them before you park, or just like as you go. You don't want to make sure that you get a fine, because nobody likes paying fines. So.
Absolutely. And I see a question about coming to campus for COVID testing and where to park. Parking, as long as you're not in a handicap or fire lane parking space, it is up for grabs. So as long as you're in a general parking spot for the summer, you'll be fine. So if you're coming before the semester to get a COVID test or whatever you need to do, you as a family member can park on campus for free in any spot that is not specially reserved. So like Laverne said, please read those signs. There was an additional question about parking. I'm not sure if any of you might know this. If you are a first year student and you do have a commuter, I'm guessing a commuter parking pass, can you leave your car overnight in the commuter lot? I'm assuming you could for like one night.
I believe you can, yes. Anyone disagree with that?
I think you can as well.
Yeah, so actually parking is free from yeah, I would think I would think you can, because parking is free starting at 8 p.m. I believe all over campus. On Monday through Thursday it starts at 8 p.m. and then Friday I believe it starts around like 5 or 6, and then parking's free all throughout the weekend in all locations. So if you had a commuter pass, and I guess if you'd be paying, like technically your pass is good for, the 6 a.m. all the way until the 8 p.m. So I don't see that there would be an issue with leaving it overnight.
Yeah, and I will say the folks in parking and transportation are very friendly. I myself have had extenuating circumstances where I've had to leave my car for a little longer and just let them know so that they know that nothing's wrong with the vehicle, that there's nothing suspicious happening. They're pretty responsive to those kinds of requests. Let's see here. So thinking about moving to an on-campus residence hall, or probably some of our off-campus residences feel a little bit like a residence hall, what would you bring or not bring?
So one of the main questions we've been getting in freshman orientation is people are like, it says I can't bring a mini fridge or a microwave. So that is true. You cannot bring those because they provide those for you in freshman dorms and in the apartments as well. So that is one thing that you definitely do not bring. You also are not allowed to bring like toasters and other things like that. Yeah, so those are some good do nots to follow. I would say one thing that is really good to bring that I noticed is helpful is for doing laundry, you want to get a laundry basket that maybe like rolls, or like a backpack one, or something that's like easy to maneuver. Because if you have like a huge thing that you're trying to carry, it can get a little difficult like in the elevator, and it's just like a space issue. So I would say be mindful about what laundry basket you're bringing. I personally got like a rolling one that stood up, so I put it in like the back of my closet, and it took up very little space, and it was super easy to transport when doing laundry.
I saw a question that said, will they provide a microwave in the dorm? So yeah, so like Meg said, they provide that like mini fridge in all the dorms, and in the apartments it's like a actual like a bigger fridge. And then, but for the dorms, it's like a mini fridge with like a mini freezer on top, and then the microwave is stacked on top of that.
A helpful tip that I heard once was to like anything that has like an open heat, so kind of like a coffee maker with the hot rings, like anything that is openly very hot, you can't bring to campus. So like you can bring a Keurig, but you can't bring like a coffee pot and the heater. So just to be aware of anything that could be a fire hazard.
Yep, I saw in the chat about an air purifier. My understanding is that because it is not something that heats or might be dangerous, other than like pulling a large amount of electricity, if it's a very large one, I think that that probably would be acceptable. If you do have any questions, I know there are probably a lot of questions about housing. I will drop as much housing contact information in the chat as I can at the very end. An additional question about housing. Can anyone speak towards the floors? Like what are there carpets? Are they tile? This is specifically in Pecos Tubman, but I'm not sure if that varies across residence halls.
Yeah, so if the student was placed in Pecos Tubman, the Pecos Tubman, Douglas, or Barton, the floors are carpeted, but it is like a little bit like hard. So it's like there's like a direct like cement, probably like flooring like right beneath it. So it's not like soft carpeting. So I would definitely like, recommend bringing a rug or something to put like beneath their bed or something. Like that's definitely what I did. And I lived in Douglas, which is in that same quad my freshman year. But in the towers, so if they were placed in the Glen Complex, Tower A, B, or D, they just recently got tiles. They just got rid of their carpets, and now they have like just tiles in the rooms.
Great. So there was a follow-up question about computers, and should you register your technology with TUPD? So I will ask that specific question, and then if you all could talk a little bit about safety on campus.
Yeah, so I know that TUPD does recommend that you register your technology with them. I have to say, I personally never got around to it. I probably should, so I think I might actually do that for my senior year. But I would recommend that you do that just in case. It's better safe than sorry. It's not hard to do, so you might as well just have that anyways. But for safety on campus, so there are many different kind of policies that are put in place. I personally recommend, so my orientation leader when I was an incoming freshman gave us TUPD's phone number and said just keep it in your phone at all times, like just have it just in case. So I still to this day have it in my contacts, just so that it's there, which I'm sure we can send that in the chat, or I can when I'm done talking. But there's also the blue light boxes around campus. So if there's ever an issue, you can press one of those if you can't get to your phone or whatever. So those are two really good things to just kind of be aware of. But there are many other things if anyone wants to touch on.
I also know that I lived in Tower D my freshman year, and the safety in the dorms is thick. There you have to have a card to get into the building, and then you show your card to like a CCA, which is someone just sitting at a desk like welcoming students in, and then you swipe your card to get in the elevator to go to your floor. And then after a certain time, there's also security officers in each building, just for like an extra added layer of protection as well. But like Meg said, to record your serial number for your technology, I think is a great idea if you don't already get it registered with TUPD, just because it's something to have in case for whatever reason you lose your computer or someone takes it or grabs it, just to have that information ready and available to be able to look for it. I would suggest having that.
And adding on to what Kristen was talking about, the safety in the dorms, like she said, so your one card, when you pick that up and you move into your dorm, you'll be given a sticker that corresponds with your specific dorm. And then of course, like, through like technology, yay, it gets to only swipe access into your building. So no one else's one card can swipe into your building unless they are a resident of that building. So you'd have to swipe to get into the building. Then you'd have to show your one card to the community center assistant that runs the front desk. They're looking for that specific sticker on your one card. And then you'll have to swipe again to get onto the elevators or the staircase or in the hallway if you're living on the first floor. And then you'll have your own personal key to your room. And of course, that key should never be shared with someone else. If you have a roommate, you will both get like identical keys, unless it's like an apartment where you get your own room. Then it's like the same key to open the front door, but then not your actual bed space. That'll be a different key. And yeah, and then also I would also recommend getting like a wristlet or something where you can keep your one card. I actually have mine, and I can show it if you want. It has like it has like a holder to hold my one card, and then I also put my key on there, and I just like keep it on my wrist or in my backpack or something like that, just so I have them in all in one space, because it does cost to replace both of those. More expensive for the key, definitely, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a great piece of advice. can we talk a little bit about safety around campus too? So if you're going right off campus in the area, what to do and avoid?
I know that TUPD has an app, and on their app, if there's a there's a button that you can hold down, and it's for if you feel uncomfortable or just unsafe, or you're walking around at night. On their app, the Safer Mobility app is the name of it, I believe, and you just hold down the app, and then if you take your finger off for whatever reason and don't type in a passcode, then TUPD will geolocate you and just show up to make sure that everything's okay. So their TUPD has a presence even beyond just campus. Also, adding on to that, I lived off campus for 2 years, and like right around Towson University, in Towson Place Apartments, and I know that they had security officers just like sitting in a parking lot in case anything happened. So police is always readily available, and security. So I think that Towson's surrounding campus is very safe.
TUPD also reports any like crimes that unfortunately like take place like in nearby on campus or nearby in the Towson area as well. So I don't know the specific radius, but it's with like anywhere within like Towson, the Towson area, like they'll definitely like give you an email or give you a text about that. And so like, to be aware and to be like more cautious if you're like in that area or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think too, to add, so like a little bit about my background, I come from like a really small rural town. So I was definitely a little nervous to go to Towson because it's like a city or like someplace, where like different things can happen. And I can say that I have never once felt uncomfortable walking around on campus or even this close surrounding areas off campus. I think you can get into trouble anywhere you are, but I don't think it should dictate your fear level, and it shouldn't make you be afraid. I'm like super short. I'm like a little under 5 feet tall, and I feel super comfortable like walking around. I've never felt afraid, and there's always people around, which is really great. I've never been like anywhere on campus and have not seen a person. So I think that also helps to kind of ease your nerves a little bit.
Great. And while we're on the off-campus train, can we talk about shuttle options, and then also just recommendations for things to do off campus, even if it's currently on pause for COVID?
Yeah, so there are on-campus shuttles as well as off-campus shuttles. So if your student is living in an off-campus apartment in the area, they should look into seeing if there's like a shuttle that can provide them transportation to campus. I know that there's ones for like Goucher, Loch Raven, all across like York Road, Fairmont, and also in like the Rogers Forge area as well. So there's tons of shuttles, honestly, so it's something to look into. In terms of things to do off campus, yeah, like you said, COVID obviously may like it's probably a little bit on pause right now, but Austin has a wide variety of things to do. They have the mall is in Uptown Towson, so as well as a movie theater, as well as like several restaurants that are very popular, such as like Chipotle and Nacho Mamas and Nando's and things like that. So Uptown Towson has a wide variety of restaurants and little things to do. There's also like a couple bowling alleys and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think just to add on to that as well, like you mentioned about the shuttles, they'll kind of take you everywhere. I definitely recommend downloading the TU Tiger Ride app. So it will give you like an overview of all the different maps and routes that the shuttles will take you. And they're all free for students. The off-campus ones, you just have to swipe your one card. Some of them will even take you into the inner harbor, which can be really fun. So if your student is interested in going around there for the afternoon, walking around, maybe going to the aquarium, something like that, that's a really great option. Also, just to note about the shuttles as well, there are ones that will take you to like the Target and Walmart and like the grocery store and everything. So if they don't have access to a car or, you know, whatever the reason is, then that's a really great option as well.
Great. I'm seeing a few questions about one card. So can someone explain what a one card does and then how students can get their one card this year?
Yeah, so your one card is kind of like your best friend in college. I feel like you need it for everything. Like we mentioned, if you live on campus, you need it at least 3 times just to get into your room. So that's really important. Even if you don't live on campus, they still use it for meals, getting into sports games, using the off-campus shuttles, kind of everything you need your one card for, printing, anything like that. So this year, normally they would be passed out during orientation. You would get your picture taken and they would be sent home with you. This year, if you're living on campus, you will get them during move-in. So when you come to get your keys and move in, they will give you your one card then. You have to make sure your photos are submitted and approved. So make sure if you haven't done that, you submit them on the one card website. If you are not living on campus, I believe that the first couple weeks of classes, they will have pickup stations to go and pick up your one card in different areas. I think the student union, outside of different buildings. Is that correct? Okay, yes.
And if you don't have a first year student who's not moving online, I saw this question, who's not moving onto campus, you can pick up a one card at the one card office window anytime during business hours as well. If a family wanted to come see their student on campus, what are options for them?
I think I can speak to that. So residence halls are limiting the number of visitors that can come in and visit with residents. So visiting your student's room might not be an option, but there are still plenty of things to do in Towson, just like we mentioned earlier, and the surrounding areas and communities. So family members can certainly come to campus and visit with their student. It's encouraged.
Can someone talk a little bit about activities for students as they move in? So those kind of intro activities, either in the residence halls or we call our Welcome to or Welcome Week program Welcome to TU. So can someone describe what that's like?
Yeah, I can. I don't know it's like specifically, you know, how things are going to look this year, of course, but there are a couple of mandatory in the past, you know, there's always a couple of mandatory events that the students have to attend, such as Convocation, which is basically like their sort of ceremonial induction into the university. And then there's also like they have to like meet with their advisor and things like that. So of course, like they'll reach out to more information will be coming very soon as to what those activities will look like. But in the past, there's been like a set it off event, which has like hot air balloon rides and like food and music and just like a little welcoming little party on campus. There's also like there was also like an event last year where some of the other orientation leaders, like myself, we were able to go and show the students where their classes were, if they were planning on going to campus. I don't know if that's and something that's going to be offered this year. And yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We are trying to move as many events as we can virtually, or change the operating procedure so that we can hold them still on campus. The campus tour is being part of a mini orientation that we're offering on campus. To reference one of the questions that came through, yes, if your student lives off campus, they are still welcome to join and are encouraged to join the freshman orientation welcome to TU events. And there are even some mandatory events. While all the mandatory events can be completed online, some of them will have options to be in person. So your student should definitely download the guidebook app, which they'll get more information about shortly, and then keep an eye out for communication about what they need to attend. Sorry, Meg, I saw you were going to say something.
No, you're all good. Yeah, I think also just to kind of add on to like Welcome Week stuff, a lot of clubs will be doing stuff that week to kind of recruit people and get people interested in their clubs. So I honestly think the first week being a freshman at Towson is probably the best week because you're never bored. Like it kind of, I remember calling my mom being like, it kind of feels like camp. Like you just like have so many things, you can go in so many directions. So I would say the first week can be really scary, but just go to something. And whether this year that means virtually or in person, outside, socially distanced, whatever, I ask you to encourage your students to go to something because everyone kind of starts off scared and anxious, but it's a really great way to meet people.
And then also don't think that the events stop like after Welcome Week or after the first week of classes or anything like that. There are events that go on periodically throughout the entire year, whether those are building-wide events for the dorms or if those are clubs and organization events or academic events or things like that. There's several little things going around campus. I know someone asked if what different activities are hosted by like the residence halls. So and that their students living in Douglas Hall. So I lived in Douglas my freshman year, and Douglas is the home of the Honors College. So if there's like the Honors College hosts a lot of events in Douglas Hall, but that you don't even need to be a part of the Honors College to go to. So like I wasn't a part of Honors College, but it still felt like, I was welcome to go to their events and things like that. And then as well as all the dorms and apartments, they have like what is called like a building council, and their job is to basically plan out a bunch of events for their building communities, and just to make living on campus and just being a student at Towson really just like a lot more fun and interactive.
There were some follow-up questions to Welcome to TU. I'll grab this one of what are the dates of Welcome Week. So this year, move-in for on-campus students is scheduled between the 13th of August and the 23rd of August. However, on-campus incoming first-year students have mandatory requirements starting August 20th. So we would recommend if your student is an incoming first-year student, they are required to attend Convocation online. So they don't need to be on campus, but we would recommend that if they are looking for that comprehensive experience, that they move on campus by the 20th so that they can start their Welcome Week with attending Convocation online on the 20th. Their requirements will continue out from there. I saw another question about meeting with the advisor. That will be scheduled for your student. They will have a required time to meet with their advisor. They don't need to schedule that themselves. But the follow-up question that I want to pass on to the panelists is, what about for transfer students? How can transfer students get involved? What of this applies to them?
Well, transfer students are certainly welcome and encouraged to come to all of the events that are on campus, regardless of whether it's during Welcome Week, Welcome to TU, or any of the events that are held throughout the academic year or the semester. I know that CAB, the Center for Student Activities, the Student Activities Board, they hold a lot of activities throughout the semester. And again, it's a little hazy, unsure about what it will look like this semester, but they're still going to hold activities. So transfer students and first year students, all students are encouraged to come and welcome to come to any of the activities that are held throughout the year.
Can someone talk about the differences between kinds of housing? So if someone is in a tower versus somewhere in West Village, what differences should students expect there?
Yeah, so in Pega, Tubman, Douglas, and Barton, which is like our West Village houses, those offer hotel style living. So as of this year, those will be the dorms that you'd still be required to have a roommate. And it's more sort of private off. So it's like you have your room with your roommate and your like own sides to the room, but then you'd also have a personal bathroom inside the room just for you and your roommate, as well as a sink would be outside. So in case, you know, your roommate is in the bathroom, you can like, you know, freshen up at the sink and get ready for your day that way. And you'd get, you know, your own bed, desk, dresser, and closet with doors there. If they were living somewhere such as if they were living in the towers, those will be offered as single housing for this upcoming year. So it would be just one person per room, and then it would be 2 people to a bathroom. So they would be sharing the bathroom with the room that is with the roommate that lives next door to them. So they the doors, the bathroom is like in between the rooms, and as well as Douglas and Barton and Pake and Tubman, they get their own desk, dresser, closet, and things like that. The only other main difference that'll also be the living style for if they're living in Newell Hall, as well as single rooms, and then, you know, bathroom next door. The only other difference would be the residence tower, which offers like quad style living. So you'd have your room, desk. It actually brings like an armoire, which is like a closet and a dresser all in one. And then typically the quads hold around 16 students. So it's like eight rooms and 2 roommates per each room. But this year, of course, those numbers will decrease to around 4 people per quad. And then they would have a bathroom in that quad to share. And then apartments as well. Those are we have a few different options for apartments, but Carol and Marshall are more newly renovated ones, which have a private room for each student, and then a shared bathroom for those. And Towson Run will also be offering the same for this upcoming year.
Yeah, kind of like good rule of thumb for this year is they're not doing more than 2 people to 1 bathroom. So our dorms like Prettyman and Scarborough, which have communal bathrooms, are closed because they would not be able to properly clean those. So that is why, for example, Towers, instead of 4 people sharing 1 bathroom, they have limited it to just 2 people. But that is also why Barton, Douglas, Peka, and Tubman are keeping their housing the same, because it's always 2 people per bathroom. I also saw kind of a message asking about like unisex and co-ed stuff. So my freshman year, I lived in Barton, and it was a co-ed dorm. So me and my roommate were obviously both females and shared our room and bathroom. But on both sides of us, we had males who both shared a room and a bathroom. So you never share a bathroom with anyone of the opposite gender or the opposite sex. But for example, you will be living, if it's a co-ed, you will be living on the same floor as them.
Awesome. Well, I see that we're almost at the end of our time. So I want to invite each of our panelists to give the best piece of advice that they feel like these families can take with them as they support their student coming to Towson.
I would definitely just advise that you encourage your students to not get discouraged by the unknown or by COVID, because Towson University still has a lot of great things to offer, and they're working really hard to provide all their students with an authentic learning experience. As the unpredictable is going on outside, I would just send your student off with all of the safety precautions, all the several masks, hand sanitizers, things like that. Just be just things that they can keep on them to be cautious at all times, and of course remind them to always social distance if whenever possible, and to just they're sort of like in control of their experience at Towson. So Towson is really like what you make it, what you put in, you'll get out of. So to get involved, as much as you can. I know that clubs and organizations are working to have the involvement fair, which is like a big showcase for all of the clubs and organizations somehow this year, and just to always keep an eye out on, of course, their emails, because all those updates and things like that will be coming straight to their Towson emails. So yeah, just don't get, discouraged. It's not gonna look the same as it's always been, but it's still going to be a great year.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great. I kind of going off of that would say definitely encourage independence, because that fosters the most growth. So make sure you're encouraging your student to kind of take a step of faith, take a leap of faith by themselves. And college is a huge transformative time. So it's really great to be there for them and encourage them. But it's also important to recognize that this is a big change in their life, and they are starting to become adults all on their own. So always being there, being super supportive, but also recognizing that this is maybe the time to take a step back and let them become the person that you've raised them to be.
I think my biggest piece of academic advice would be to encourage your students to talk to their professors. All of my professors have had so many different experiences, and they've shared their experiences with me. And not only has that helped to shape what I want to do with my career, but it's also just been really interesting, and I've learned so much from them. So plus it also builds a great relationship between your student and their professor, specifically if it's a major class that you're taking with that professor. So just encouraging communication and possibly like building a professional relationship with them would be an amazing thing.
I just want to piggyback off of that real quick. Like Kristen said, especially now, if if your student's not feeling well, or they're falling behind, or things like life happens, honestly, and the professor will best understand that through communication. So always encourage your students to communicate with their professors, because at the end of the day, it's the student and the professor, and the professor is they're key to getting that good grade and succeeding really in the class. So always push communication, and yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate those tidbits of advice. I do want to mention that I put in the chat information about housing, or links to the housing websites for all of the on-campus housing locations. If you do have additional questions about the particulars of your child's housing situation, feel free to use those links to get in touch with Housing and Residence Life or Capstone in the event that your student lives in Pecos, Tubman, or Millennium. I also posted in the chat the TU coronavirus response website. That's where you can find all the most up-to-date information about precautions and requirements that Towson has due to COVID-19. I do want to acknowledge that they announced mandatory testing for all students who are going to participate in campus life. That means living on campus or taking a class on campus, and that students are required to present a negative coronavirus test within 10 days of engaging on campus. So either moving in or starting their first day of class. What within 10 days means is that that negative test must be dated in the 10 days prior to your student coming to campus. So it does not mean they can come to campus and be tested within 10 days. It means that that negative test result needs to be within that 10 days prior to arriving on campus. So I have seen a lot of questions come through my email, through various channels about that. Hopefully that provides you some amount of clarity. Our understanding at this moment is that as students take coronavirus tests somewhere other than campus, that they will be able to provide them to the health center in order to verify that they have tested negative. I know that this is a recent update. We were notified at the same time that you were. So we're still working through particulars on that. And as guidance is clarified, I recommend that you check that towson.edu/coronavirus website. It also has contact information for ask-TU at towson.edu that can field some of those general questions. The other thing that I want to point out, I always end these calls with the link for you, which is towson.edu/families. That is the parent and family website that will direct you a few places. It will have recordings of all of these family orientation live sessions. It has a link to join the TU for Families e-newsletter. I can't recommend that enough. If you're receiving orientation emails, you will also receive an invitation to create a free account on our TU for Families portal and newsletter. And then it also has links to the Towson Family Network, which is our parent and family organization here on campus. Joining the family network entitles you to some perks like being eligible for your student to apply for some scholarships. In 2021, when fingers crossed we can be together again, to have some perks during family weekend. And we also support the Student Emergency and Food Insecurity Fund with your membership fee of the Towson Family Network. So I recommend that you check that out, as well as all of our resources for you as a family member. So with that, have a great afternoon and go Tigers.